Welcome to New York, DVW fam. I'm here with 3 coats, freezing my ass off.
Code on the door, or you need to buy something to use the restroom.
Inaudible. Being inaudible.
So here are some things not to do as a tourist on a subway, but we're gonna get some tips from a local that rides the subway for how many years of your life?
Whoa, you ain't exposing my age.
Okay, for over 30 years of his life. So, hey, he just gave me some tips right now as a tourist what not to do on the subway.
All right, never fall asleep on the subway, because you know why? They can steal your stuff and they can sucker punch you. I don't know.
Queens is my home. Listen up. This is not Coney Island. This is the subway. And there should be no surfing or ride. Transfer is minimum of 2.
Guys, I don't know if you see this. I'm here with 3 coats, freezing my ass off. There's a dude right there in a t-shirt and shorts running in the rain, guys. Welcome to New York City. That's New York City for you,
That's New York City for you.
He's literally in shorts and a t-shirt.
Yep.
He's right over there.
Thing to avoid when you guys are visiting New York as a tourist is, renting a car when you guys are in the city, because, maybe when you guys are in another city, you want to get around like Vegas or Hawaii or something like that. Sometimes I've rented cars, but the locals here and I advise you guys avoid renting cars when you guys are in New York City, because why, Action Kid?
Because
he's a local, by the way.
There's so much traffic here, hard to find parking, and even if you do, parking garages, they're expensive, or you might get your car dinged.
Yeah.
Because parking spaces are so tight.
Yeah, look at this. Look at all the noises, sounds, honking and all that. Plus, New York driving is probably a different beast too if you guys are used to another type of driving, right? This is the driving.
Yeah. People can get quite aggressive here, impatient.
The parking prices are expensive in New York City, and you gotta pay for everything, right? Because there's not a lot of real estate here for you guys to park.
That's right. I've seen garages in Manhattan that'll cost like $30 an hour.
Yeah.
And then they add on top of that like 20% tax or something. It's crazy.
Avoid renting a car in New York City, especially if you're a newbie like me, because it'll probably be hard to get around. It's probably a waste of money because you won't be using your car anyways. You shouldn't prefer to use your car because there's a lot of traffic and you gotta pay for a bunch of parking spaces. So the alternative is
take the subway, walk, use Uber, even though Uber may be expensive.
Even e-bikes they have.
Yeah, they have rental e-bikes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say, that's the best way for me to get around in the past 2 or 3 days is the subway.
Another thing you guys should not do is not underpack and have your essentials. Unfortunately, I am speaking from experience, but another thing you guys should avoid and not do when you guys are visiting New York is to not do your research on the weather. Like I said, I thought it was just gonna be cold weather. I didn't account for the rain, so this isn't waterproof. And I didn't bring an umbrella, but luckily Vinny here came in with the save for the umbrella. But yeah, guys, if it wasn't raining right now, I wouldn't be as cold, but you guys can probably hear it in my voice. It is cold right now, so yeah, guys, make sure you guys prepare for New York City and don't be like me. But otherwise, I think I prepared. But yeah, I did pack waterproof shoes though. These vesties right here, so I did something right. All right, let's hope we don't have to give you guys some more things to avoid and things not to do from experience. All right, I want to super reiterate what I said before to avoid underpacking and coming unprepared, because we're at this landmark called the Gantry State Park on this pier, and it's a very beautiful view of the Empire State Building and the skyline view right here, and the rain is just attacking us from all angles. And yeah, I just wish I had a raincoat or my own umbrella, but it's all good, guys. We're gonna risk it for the biscuit. It's not every day we're in New York.
All right, another thing to avoid in New York City is don't be negligent with your water consumption, because Action Kid here told me that the bathroom access is very limited in New York City. So usually I drink water with all my meals, but all these meals I've been trying to stay away from water and using the restroom wherever I can find. Because if you see a restroom, it's like finding a blue shell in Mario Kart. It's gonna be rare and hard to come by. So if you do find one, make sure you guys use it and make sure to keep track of your water consumption, because there are some cities like that I've been to as well. But I would say that in New York City, public restrooms are hard to come by here.
And if you do find them, sometimes they'll be gated off. They have a code on the door, or you need to buy something to use the restroom, so they can be stingy.
All right, so this is a public restroom park, kind of on top of what I said before. The things to avoid is not paying attention to your bladder, but also another thing to avoid is, you know, really dirty public restrooms, usually at certain parks, but when you gotta go, so we'll brave it. It's pretty dirty. All right, I guess the thing you guys can avoid but also want to come by is a public New York City bathroom, especially one at the park, because it's gonna be open, but it was pretty bad in there, guys. It will give LA a run for its money for their public restrooms. I mean, some of the stalls were overflowing and it was wet everywhere because sometimes it's snowing or raining here. But I think the difference is that in LA, at least there's more real estate, there's more options. The buildings and businesses are more condensed here, so most places might not have the restrooms you're looking for. So when you do, if you guys are squeamish, maybe avoid the public park restrooms. But if you guys really need to go, you gotta go like us. So we're happy to see it. So we braved it, we're fine. As far as this video goes, who knows what happens after, but yeah, guys. What would you say?
That's probably the worst bathroom in the city. I think.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, what restroom is this?
It's one of the worst.
This is one of the, yeah. This is my first time. I don't know what to compare it to. I thought it was pretty bad. That's why I'm putting it in this things to avoid in New York City. But if these guys are saying it's the worst restrooms in the city, and these guys are all around the city.
This one and Columbus Park.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like these two specifically. The other park restrooms aren't.
Wait, so name them. What's this park called?
Sarah Roosevelt Park.
Sarah Roosevelt Park. Avoid this public restroom, and Columbus.
Columbus Park.
Yeah. If these guys walk around the city all the time, so if these guys are saying avoid this park, these are one of the things to avoid in New York City, guys. All right.
Those two bathrooms.
In the summertime, you gotta be careful because it's blurry, it smells, and you got gnats and flies flying all over the bathroom. You gotta be careful. Make sure you don't open your mouth because they will fly in your mouth and your nose.
Oh.
Yikes. Yeah, I don't know how they did it, but it made me grateful for LA park restrooms. I don't know how New York City park public restrooms made me grateful for LA park restrooms, but thinking back on it, you know, the LA, California park restrooms aren't too bad compared to that one. We're in the Chinatown area right here, and one thing I would say to avoid in New York City is chain restaurants like this Popeyes. I mean, there's a lot of people that love Popeyes. I love Popeyes, but when I'm in New York City, especially visiting as a tourist, you're gonna wanna try the great, delicious local food, and I would say avoid the chain restaurants like McDonald's, Popeyes, and all that, because you can find that everywhere, but you cannot find Wafeng, $6 and under roast pork, delicious Chinese food everywhere. That's just in New York. That's New York culture, guys. So yeah, avoid chain restaurants and embrace the local foods and culture in New York City. Audible? Being inaudible?
Man, oh man, oh man, oh man. What can I say? I could have not picked a better time to film that things to avoid segment than at that time at the subway station, because as you guys could see, I was, you know, giving my piece and then I kind of stopped a little bit. But if you guys could hear from the background, some dude approached us saying, hey, cursing, whatnot, pulling up his pants, getting into a fighting position, coming towards us. But luckily we turned around and he, you know, stopped approaching us. But that is the point, guys. I'm giving you guys these tips and things to avoid because there might be some people more vulnerable than me traveling New York City. So if these things have already happened to me in only 3 days I've been here, guys, I've only been here for 3 days and I've had multitude of incidents. So I'm gonna give you guys a little story time right now. But basically, some things to avoid in New York City is, for one, traveling late at night and by yourself, because these things are more prone to happen during those situations. And two, this is obvious anywhere, but sketchy characters, unfriendly people in New York City could be, you know, unpredictable and, you know, approach you even unprovoked. So you guys should do your best to avoid them, and one of those things is to avoid traveling alone and at night. I was also in the subway today. There's already a guy in the train, another guy came in and they were just talking trash to this other guy. harassing him, obviously provoking him. He was saying some pretty harsh, mean things. He wasn't being violent, but the guy did the right thing and he turned around while being provoked and he just walked the other way. So that is a perfect example of what you guys should do in New York City. So basically, he probably watched this video in the future or something like that, and he avoided these certain characters in New York. So when you guys are in New York, you're going to encounter these characters, and that's a culture shock for me being from California, because you know we don't really take much public transportation. So this message is to you guys traveling to New York who are not comfortable or have never taken public transportation, especially in New York. Make sure you guys follow these tips. So yeah guys, this tip was given to me by some locals, and I actually experienced this for myself, being a 3-day local for myself. So I guess I earned my New York City badges. So yeah, keep exploring New York, and I'm gonna give you guys some more warnings, tips, and things to avoid in New York City. Let's go. Honestly guys, I know I'm kind of, making a little bit of light in this situation, kind of laughing and smirking while I'm telling this story, because it's more so a reaction because I'm in such disbelief that this many things has happened to me in 72 hours being there. But on a serious note, I'm actually really thinking about myself and others around me that I know, more vulnerable people, women, children, elderly, and I can't help to think that if they were alone at night in some of these situations, what would happen to them. So that's why I really want to get this message across. If anything, I would say on this list, I'll definitely say just watch your surroundings and be aware, because New York is built different, guys. I know they say if you guys can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere, and now I can see, because it's crazy out here, guys. Not just the people, the weather's no joke.
Welcome to New York, DBW fam.
So I'm making a things to avoid and warnings in New York City. Can you guys all give one?
Things to avoid. Yeah, Times Square, avoid anyone in a costume. Anyone in a costume, stay 100 feet away, yeah.
They got one.
I don't know.
Okay.
Next.
Avoid finding yourself in a place with no bathroom.
I would say avoid East New York, or like any restaurant near Times Square or in Midtown. Gonna be really overpriced.
I was in Times Square with my mom, and she was visiting the first time ever, and she was taking just a selfie of herself with the billboards in the background, and there happened to be a guy dressed as Spider-Man who was caught in her selfie, and she's taking a picture of herself, and as soon as she was done, he comes up like, "Give me money, you just took a picture of me."
Yeah.
But it wasn't that at all. She was just taking a selfie, but he was like, "Give me money."
That's funny. That sounds good. Do not sleep on the train again. New York, New York, New York. Y'all just keep giving me content. I'm telling you guys, I didn't come in here with a script for things to avoid in New York City, but I keep seeing it day by day, hour by hour. So obviously being intoxicated is bad anywhere, but some people think that it is better to be intoxicated in an area with public transportation rather than driving. But I actually saw something that could have been very bad. There was a girl obviously very intoxicated, and there was a stop, and she drunkenly stumbled out of the door, and she couldn't control herself, and she nearly fell into the railroad tracks. And those trains come every few minutes. She was lucky enough that one of her friends caught her at the last moment. Everybody gasped, but obviously, anywhere you don't want to be super duper too intoxicated, but especially in New York City. And then that leads on to the next one, is to avoid the bodily extremities on the grounds at some of these subway stations. As you guys can see, it is not the cleanest, but especially on weekends, these things all lead to one another. So all the things on this list is to be avoided if you guys watch this video and follow closely. But yeah, so avoid being drunk so you don't throw up in the subway station, and so you're not too drunk to avoid the throw up and the urine that might result from too much liquid and alcohol. Speaking of alcohol, there it is, a twisted tea. Honestly, I should have just ended it at don't get too drunk. I didn't even need to explain further after that. So many things could go wrong if you guys get too intoxicated. That's why, public intoxication is actually illegal in New York City. If you guys get too drunk and lose function of your judgment, you guys can actually fall for all of these things to avoid in New York, and warnings. You guys might get too drunk, throw up on the ground, might run into your own throw up, maybe encounter, some unsavory characters and not avoid them. Maybe get scammed in Times Square and get too drunk and fall asleep on the train. So basically, stay away from the devil's juice in New York City, especially if you're a newbie. So do what you gotta do, but if it's your first time anywhere, you guys wanna have 100% motor skills and judgment at all times. All right, like I said, all these rules, things to avoid, warnings, eventually all come through full circle because I'm breaking one of my rules and traveling late night because of this thing to avoid, which is avoid lollygagging while you guys are traveling on the subways, being on your phone, not paying attention, because you guys can miss your stop, and this could happen to the best of us, not just me, a New York City newbie. It can happen to anyone, and it happened to my friend, which is a lifelong, New York local, because sometimes, especially at the nighttime, there's construction or the cars break down. I don't know how to explain the full situations and engineering mechanics of the MTA or the subway, but basically during the nighttime, the subways might, run a little bit wonky, so sometimes it reroutes. So maybe when you put on your Google Maps and, it says, 36 minutes to this route, you always wanted to be checking and making sure that you're getting to that stop. So yeah, avoid lollygagging, and that actually ties into don't be sleeping on the train. So yeah, make sure you guys stay vigilant on Google Maps, on your phone, your directions, while you guys are traveling on the subway, so you guys don't miss your stop like me and have to travel late night. All right guys, so I was actually on the fence when Vinny here was telling me about that things to avoid when he was putting on, the little pamphlets on the chairs, but he was pretty sure that that guy was a scammer. But after the fact, knowing what happened next, ironically, we got off that train and then we went to another train. Basically, we saw him again. He was counting his money, singing. It was almost like a scene in a movie. That doesn't prove that it was a scam. But then we saw him get into another train that we're in, doing the same thing. And just judging from his demeanor and vibe, if I was a betting man, I would say that he's just scamming for his own gain or whatever. So yeah, that's also a thing to avoid. But like I said, it's more of a warning. You can do what you want. You can give him money or not. But so it's just off judging from the vibes. And from the vibes, I would say that he wasn't too honest in what he was asking for when he was asking us for the money. That's it. So on to our next warning in New York City. And on that cue, here comes the subway. Top things to avoid and not to do in New York City is avoid underpacking and not to forget to look at the weather and not forget your gloves, undergarments, leggings, thermals. Don't forget all the essentials for the weather in New York City, because if you guys are from the West Coast or not from an area where it gets this cold, it could get treacherous, guys. So yeah, don't do that, guys. Don't leave your essentials behind. Of course, you can buy things here too, but you're also gonna have to get out and walk to go get those items. Well, obviously, you shouldn't underprepare or avoid underpreparing for any city, but the difference in New York City is that it's a very walking central city. You're basically walking everywhere, so even if you forget your things and you go out to, get a coat, get a jacket, gloves or something like that, you're still gonna have to step outside your hotel or accommodation or Airbnb to walk to that area and get your things. Yeah, maybe you can take a taxi or Uber, but also it's a city, guys. You're still gonna have to walk out from, wherever you are and walk to the nearest store. And by that time, your butts might already be frizzing off. So yeah, guys, avoid underpacking and underpreparing in NYC, baby. Speaking from experience.
All right, so I have a personal story for this next thing to avoid and not to do in New York City. And one, it is traveling late at night because something happened to me, and I'll give you a story time in a sec. But the other second thing is to avoid certain characters and suspicious people that are not too friendly at certain times of the day, usually at night. So 1 and 2, avoid traveling alone at night, and 2, avoid suspicious characters. You guys would think this is pretty obvious, but on my 6 days here, I've already had a couple of encounters, and this is the story time coming here. So basically, I was at the subway around 1 a.m. after, you know, some of my shoots, and I was trying to get home. And it wasn't this exact exit or turnaround, but something similar. So on the other side, I saw, you know, a gentleman, actually looking back at it, not too gentle of a man, being inaudible. I was looking at my maps going to the right, and then he was asking me something inaudibly, probably for some money, but then I went to the left and he kind of fainted at me, so I kind of, you know, got in square up mode, but then he didn't really do anything, so I kind of went to the left, but I just can't help thinking that was, you know, an old elderly woman or someone more vulnerable, my mother, sister, something like that. In that situation, I wouldn't want them to be there late at night, so just giving you guys a heads up because it does happen, and that's why it's funny.
All right, you guys see that little puddle? You see these cars coming out right here? Another tip not to do is stand next to the sidewalk, these puddles, because you already know what happens next. A car crashes into that puddle and it'll wet you up, guys. No booker. Don't stand next to the puddles, guys. This car might come and wet you up. Do not stand by the sidewalks right here when it's raining. So this street is usually open during regular hours and times, but during the holiday they close up this whole street right here, so us tourists can enjoy the Midtown Manhattan during the holidays. And also another reason for things to avoid in New York City is renting and grabbing a car, because all the main things you guys are gonna want to see is walking distance and accessible via walking, which is what we're doing right now. So if you're a tourist like me, you don't gotta rent a car in New York, guys. Look at this. This is 5th Street Avenue, one of the most densely populated areas. And look, would you guys want to be driving in these conditions? All this honking, especially if you guys aren't used to New York City. So that's why, if you guys are a tourist like me, avoid the cars. Use these right here, walking, because $2.90 per each subway ride, and you're gonna get to point B to A to B, C, D, E, F, G a lot easier, right? That's nice. You could take some real life horse rides.
And that's a scam right there.
That's a scam?
Yeah.
Is that something to avoid?
Yes.
Okay,
you know
so
you know why?
So another thing to avoid, I guess, are those rides. Vinny here says the scam. I didn't know why,
well, it's not really a scam. Those pedicabs, make sure you ask them how much it costs per minute, because a lot of these are charging $8 to $9 per minute. So if you're doing just a 2-minute ride and there's traffic, it's already $16 or $18.
Oh, so instead of per minute, you should ask like per ride. Can you negotiate with them? Barter?
I mean, sometimes you can, but they're supposed to have the sign there. So if it says $8 per minute, then that's what it is. But a lot of times they try to scam you and not put the price there, and then they'll upcharge you later on at the end of the ride.
So basically be cognizant of the price that you're gonna pay, and don't get scammed.
Yeah.
Like, not necessarily avoid them altogether, but just know what you're getting yourself into.
Correct.
All right, nice. All right, another thing to avoid, and a warning, things not to do. When you're in densely populated areas like this, you don't want to keep your wallet or things in your back pocket. You want to keep it in your front, which is what I have right here. And also, my bag keeps hanging to the front, so we're gonna put the crossbody right here so that we can hold on to it like this and be safe and secure when we're in densely populated areas like here. Well, this is not part of a things to avoid. It's just more so a tip, warning, or things to do. But when you guys see these cool characters that you guys may or may not want to take photos with, maybe with your kids or your spouse or something like that, they charge you. And if you guys see, they're kind of mobbing this guy right now. And Vinny here was telling me that one of them will come and ask to take for a photo, but when you're done, they'll all come and mob you and ask you for a payment. Kind of like a peer pressure payment, right?
Well, pretty much where you would take a picture with one, but all of them would try to say, oh, no, we'll take a picture with everybody, whatever. But as soon as you take a picture with everybody expects a tip. So if you don't want them to be in the picture, don't have them in. But if you do, expect that you should tip all of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so not a thing to avoid or not do, it's just a thing to know.
All right, what's up, DVW fam? So it is about that time, the end of our 6-day New York City trip. So I want to wrap up my full experience here and give you guys the raw and unfiltered first impressions of New York. So yeah, guys, as you guys can see, we did a lot of great things in New York City, and I am in awe of this city. I don't know why I haven't came here sooner. It's such an amazing city, so much to see and do. All the cliches are true. If you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. Only in New York, these things can happen. Definitely had a culture shock, and yeah, experienced a little bit of everything here. And I'm laughing because I feel like 6 days was not too much time, but I feel like I experienced the good, bad, the ugly. Make sure you guys check out the things to avoid in New York City if you guys haven't. That was mostly the, bad side to the city. I mean, anywhere there's gonna be some good and some bad, but I definitely really embrace, the best things in the city. Had a lot of great food, saw a lot of great things, but I also realized 6 days is not nearly enough time to, see even a fraction of New York City. I feel like I barely scratched the surface, and I was scrambling throughout the city, finding the best foods, doing the coolest things. And yeah, I feel like there's so much more to do. So with that being said, if you guys have any recommendations for me, some tips for my next trip, and yeah, subscribe for more DVW food and travel vlogs. Deuces.